Alright, welcome. This is kind of like the first video that you guys have seen for this course. We're going to be doing Unit 3. We're going to start trigonometry. Essentially, we're going to be just setting up the ratios, and also we're going to be plugging things into our calculators. So I'll show you how to do both. So trigonometry is going to be a form of math. You're going to see triangles a lot, and so we're going to calculate missing sides and angles, otherwise we wouldn't be able to. We're not going to use the calculators right away, so just hold on to it for a second. We're going to do a form of trig called right triangle trig. So you're always going to have a right angle. You're always going to have a hypotenuse. And they're always going to tell you an angle to focus on. So for this one, they put a theta here. Theta kind of looks like a 0 with a slash through it. It's a Greek letter. It just stands for x or y. It's just a variable, just like an unknown. But when you do this, you always need to focus on an angle. So when I look at, some of the stuff down the page, you see the angles are labeled. And when I'm asking you to do trig, I'm asking you for the specific angle, so to focus on that. So an abbreviation or introduction, we're going to be using 3 trig functions. There's more than 3, but we're going to focus on the first 3. They're represented as sine, but it looks like sin, cosine, but it looks like cos, and tangent, which is tan. I know these are on the calculator, and I'll show you in a second how to use your calculators to do a little bit of this. But right now, to set them up, there's always like a pattern to these. So when they tell you the angle focus on, you want to label the hypotenuse as h, because that's a hypotenuse. That's always the first one I would identify, because it's still across from the right angle, just like Pythagorean theorem. Now, for the angle they focus on, you go across. The side of the triangle is the opposite side, so that's the O side. And then if you have the hypotenuse and the O, adjacent is going to be the A side. Adjacent means you are next to something. Okay, so sine of an angle is always the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is O over A. Sorry, opposite over adjacent, skipping ahead. Otherwise, we know this is SOHCAHTOA, so I write S with an O over H, telling me that the sine is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Oh my gosh, let's try again. Cosine is the A over the H. So cosine is the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And tangent is the opposite over adjacent. So it's just, different variations of the O over the H, the A over H, and the T over the A. This is SOHCAHTOA. So this is like the abbreviation, just like PEMDAS and stuff, to help you remember what goes with what. So the first thing you're going to be doing is just setting up ratios, which just means identify what number or what side should be over what. So these, they have the ratios or the fractions. So initially, when you first look at these, sine, cos, and tan, they're telling you here to focus on angle Y. Okay. So before you start doing anything, yes, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So I need to identify which is which. So right now my focus is angle Y. The hypotenuse is always the biggest side, so that's my H side. From angle Y, I go across, and that is always the opposite side. And so the 3 letters are O, A, and H. So I have the O, the A is left over as the adjacent or next to, and the H is there. So all you're doing is following the pattern now. For sine, I want the opposite over the hypotenuse, so just make a fraction with those 2 numbers. Opposite is 3, adjacent is 5. So sine for Y is 3 over 5. That's all you're doing. Just follow the pattern. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So 3 opposite and adjacent, so 3 over 4. This is all you're doing. All right, so the next 3 though, they tell you to focus on a different angle. They tell you to focus on Z. So you got to kind of switch your view of what you're looking at. So instead of focusing on Y, I'm focused on Z now. Okay, the hypotenuse still stays my hypotenuse. However, when I switch angles, my sides switch. So if I go across, this side is my opposite side. And then the O and the A switch. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so O over H, so just fill in the fraction, 4 over 5. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is O over A. All right, so if you got this, go ahead and start with there. So start with the angle. They tell you to focus on the angle. Go to that angle, label the O, the A, and the H. If you think you got it, start filling in the numbers and check back for this. So got H here. If you want to follow along, just follow along. O is all the way across. A is here. So sine is the first thing. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So fill in those 2 numbers, 7 and 25. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So 24 and 25. Tangent, opposite over adjacent. Okay. Sorry, my fractions. And then when you got those 3, fill in for N. N. Focus on N. When we do this, I have to switch my opposite and my adjacent. So 24 over 25. Cosine, 7 over 25. Tangent, O over A. All right, flip to the next page. So that's the first part of what you're going to be asked to do here. The second part is you're going to be working with the calculators. I am looking for a calculator. Wow. All right, hold on.